Hackers in space, one fish, two fish, red hat, your fish, and Microsoft gives us more tricks than treats. These stories and more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by the Salty Soul Foundation. Since 2017, Salty Soul has removed over 20,000 pounds of trash in Florida and California. Visit saltysoulfoundation.org to support this organization via direct donation or purchase of their merchandise.
Good morning and welcome to the August 12th, 2022 episode of MSP Dispatch. I'm Ray Orsini, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Tony Francisco. How you doing, Tony?
Excellent, Ray. It's already August. This doesn't even make any sense. Every time is flying by. We're getting lost in ransomware attacks and news here, news there, news everywhere. What about you?
I'm doing the same, man. I'm just scouring the news, watching our friends like Joe Panettiere, who's going to be on one of our stories. You know, I'm just finding bigger and bigger numbers so I can impress you on the show. That's really my goal for this.
Well, with that,
jump into it, man.
Let's get into the news.
Since 2018, Starlink has launched more than 3,000 small satellites into orbit. And like any emerging technology, those satellite components are being hacked. Today at Black Hat Security Conference in Las Vegas, Leonard Wooters, and I apologize if I butchered that, a security researcher will detail how a series of hardware vulnerabilities allow attackers to access the Starlink system and run custom code on the devices. The researcher notified Starlink of the flaws last year, and the company paid him for identifying the vulnerabilities. The company says its plans to release a public update following Wooters' presentations at Black Hat this afternoon, but declined to share any details about the update. Tony, Starlink's the new darling in wireless internet for anywhere. They also offer a residential and a business option. They offer the mobile option now for those friends like my buddy Dan who drives his RV around the country. Seems awesome, and it was only a matter of time till it gets hacked. But now we're getting hacked from space. I mean, was this just inevitable or short-sighted? What say you?
The bigger the attraction, the bigger the object, the bigger the target. And when it starts off with, and you can get internet, and you can get internet, and you can get internet, everybody wants internet. But now you've got some people that's, no, I just want to take that apart. I want to see how it works. I want to poke it and see how it breaks, see what makes it tick. There's always a counter to everything. Everything has a cost. And in this particular case, the cost could have been much worse. The fact that this person reported it, the fact that this person came up with, was it $50 in over-the-counter parts to hack it and get it up and running, that's amazing. But do you understand how that could have easily proliferated without saying anything to anybody, which goes full circle back to the old days when we all used to go outside and hack our cable and, disconnect the little thing.
And calling us old, buddy. I mean, it's a number 10 washer and put it in the payphone. And yes, but it's like when you're doing that collect.
I love that you knew the number 10 washer.
Ready to pick me up.
Yeah. Oh, there was an event. There was an eventuality, and I think it could have been much worse. But rest assured, this is at the very, very, very beginning. This is the first step into the Starlink delivery, which of course is going to kind of be a common denominator for everyone almost on the planet. And if this is the vehicle or the mechanism to provide that, it's kind of an easy target. It's an easy to understand target. But I mean, tell me your thoughts. I mean, is this something, the first thing I got to ask you, did you use any number 10 washers to try to hack it? And what did you attempt to do?
I mean, we have a similar circle of friends, and we have the benefit and the con that, one of our good friends, Jason Slagle, security researcher, I was just telling somebody, if I listened to him, I would never go on the internet. This may be one of those things where you got hacked or you could have been hacked, and this means, you've arrived, right? This is your awesome moment because, you got enough attention to be hacked. Honestly, I take this as a positive. I have positive takeaways on this. Now, we have a responsible hacker, responsible disclosure. Starlink did the right thing. They compensated him. Didn't say how much, but they took care of him, so yay them. And they're releasing an update in the responsible disclosure period. They're releasing an update to everybody so they can apply it. I don't know enough about Starlink to hopefully they're doing the positive thing of they're pushing the update automatically as opposed to waiting for people to do it, because how many routers have we seen where there's an update that's never been put out, on their devices, and tons of home routers or business routers are vulnerable, right? So I'm hoping they're pushing it out versus waiting to be pulled. But it makes for a good story of Black Hat. I mean, this seems all win to me in my opinion. This could have been worse. Could have been sold to any of the other places. I'm happy it is what it is. So it's not too bad. If you're using Starlink, Tony, are you using it all? Do you have any friends using it?
I'm still trying to hack it. I just want to let you know I'm still trying to hack it. You gave me the number 10 washer. Maybe that was the missing link, but no, I'm not using it yet. So
yeah, I mean, you could always, if you're using Starlink, let us know in the comments. Shoot us an email. Let us know, does this matter? Were you expecting it? Do you have a firewall behind it? So whatever. Are you using VPN? I would say using a newer technology like this, I'd probably be encrypting all my traffic to begin with. If I'm on the road, that's standard practice anyway. It's hardware that hasn't been field tested for decades. I'm probably going to put it behind a VPN or a couple layers of encryption. That's just me. But let us know what you guys are doing. Tony, speaking of our friends, making those calls, can phone a friend. Do you have a story about that?
I do. As pointed out from our amazing friend Joe Panettiere at channelede.com, UCAAS pressure and Avaya may be spearheading its own ass whooping. Now, that's not from Joe, but that's what I'm taking out of this article, and there's a lot to unpack here, so follow me if you can. First things first, we've got Avaya, which is a major player in the UCAAS space. All the MSPs know exactly who Avaya is. A lot of customers at the higher end caliber, not so much the SMBs, know who Avaya is, but it is not an uncommon name. Avaya had an audit committee right now investigating allegations from whistleblower, according to the SEC filing. Though the matters appear to be separate from a major Avaya revenue shortfall that the board is also investigating. With that, we have the Avaya shares preliminary Q3 financial results. And among the areas of concern is that the revenue was $577 million down 20% year over year. That's followed by the Wall Street Journal reporting a $600 million debt deal that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase recently arranged for Avaya went bad within weeks of that discovery, which is again followed by the Avaya organization removing the former CEO and hiring the Vonage veteran to lead the UCAAS company, which is then followed additionally by layoffs. Now, Avaya did not specifically say if the cost cutting that they were doing involved layoffs, although that appears to be the case, that in an investor presentation, the company will take an $11 million restructuring charge to cover employee separation costs and facility exit costs. All of that is the first portion of Avaya, which goes into the second portion. And I'd like to point out one small subset about the deal not closing. Was that affected by, in a previous story here on MSP Dispatch, the interest rates going up, affecting the February purchase of the $16 billion Citrix deal, unable to be funded? We'll get back to that in just a moment. Ray, I want your input on that. All of that is followed by Avaya on the top end, the leadership perspective, being affected from a leadership and internal issue. On the back end, other UCAAS players are also being pressured heavily. In August, RingCentral cut about 50 employees from the San Francisco office. Also in August, 8x8 fell sharply. Their stock fell sharply as it seems to refinance. It's looking to refinance their $500 million in debt. In July, the Avaya board of directors removing the CEO and placing that Vonage CEO in place, which was combined at the same time with all the other components that are tying this all together. So my question to you, Ray, is out of everything that we just heard, we know that the Microsoft Teams play in this group. We know that Salesforce, Slack, and Zoom are massively cannibalizing or diluting the UCAS from the back end. We know that Avaya is a major player, and on the front end, from a leadership perspective, they are being affected heavily. My question to you is, what is happening to the UCAS market? You're literally an expert. There's almost too much to talk about in such a little time. Unpack this, and I'm going to hand the mic over to you.
No, I don't know if I'm going to call myself an expert. I've been married 11 years. I don't know if I'm an expert at that either. But I will say, this is interesting because UCAS is one of those, it's a weird one. It's one of those that seems to be resilient to market downturns. It's resilient. COVID was a perfect example, right? The onset of COVID, markets went nuts. People went work from home. People began being very frugal, thrifty with their money, holding it in because they wanted to be careful. They didn't know what was coming. The UCAS space did extremely well. Now, most of the market experts are pretty certain that we're going to go into a market downturn next year. We've seen major companies start layoffs. We've seen Microsoft, we've seen Avaya, RingCentral, all these that were doing major partnerships not 6 months ago, 12 months ago, everybody's doing major layoffs. So when I hear stories about financial woes in the UCAS space, that's surprising to me. Because it's while telco, the FCC has been very clear, it's not a utility. Telco is very resilient. It's very much like a utility. So, it strikes me odd that investors are looking at it with cautious eyes. It strikes me odd that, people are withholding money or, some of these things are struggling because honestly, telco survives. But, I don't know what else to say about that.
No, and real quick, there was, just so everyone knows, I have pages and pages of notes from this and how it correlates to previous stories that we did, and to unpack all of this, hand it over to Ray and say, hey, give us your assessment of the entire industry, and you got 10 seconds, go. It isn't possible. I would love to hear everyone else's impact or input on this because the impact is market wide, but big companies are affected just like the little companies. And there's another big company that's also making some moves that's going to affect, ironically, everyone. Ray, talk about it.
October brings a slew of changes for Microsoft partners. To discuss these changes, we have Nick Ross of T-365, the definitive blog and YouTube channel for MSPs that are Microsoft partners. Nick, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. Happy to be on.
Absolutely. So, you put out videos regularly talking about Microsoft partner programs and stuff coming out in the Microsoft world. I saw this video, the last one you just put out, that you posted to our MSP. So absolutely, follow him there, follow him on the YouTube channel. We'll put in the links below. And when you have time, go watch the full video. But we have 5 minutes here. Nick, give me the short version. What's the most important stuff coming this October 30th?
Yeah, so there's a couple of major points I want to bring up, and like Microsoft typically does with their changes, it's very, very much in the weeds. So definitely would check out the blog post as well. But essentially here, Microsoft is eliminating the competencies that many of you have been getting for many years now, silver and gold competencies. And they're doing that and moving into what they're calling a single solutions partner designation. So with that, it's clearing a lot of complexity up. As far as a good note goes, it's clearing a lot of complexity up from the standpoint of having to learn the 20 or so different competencies that you could achieve and things of that nature. But on a broader note, Microsoft's really raising the bar, what it takes to get this designation. And in my opinion, up to the point in which if you're not a gold partner today, it's unlikely that you may be able to reach these new requirements. So many of us who have been part of the program are familiar with what Microsoft wants to achieve those competencies, like being able to acquire new customers, being able to have people certified within your organization, and being able to have certain usage metrics met within a trailing 12-month period. What they're doing there now is actually upping all of those and combining all those together for the 6 different designations that you can get. So things like being able to acquire net new customers went from about 3 to 10. And things like usage growth went from having monthly active users of about 2,000 to having a growing 500 monthly active users, along with 40% usage growth increase on those subscriptions that you have within your ecosystem as well. So the requirements are definitely shifting in a much higher nature. The second thing is timelines. So timelines for this starts October 3rd is when the solutions partner designation comes out. And that is also when they're kind of starting the end of life for the legacy competencies. So if you're a silver or gold partner today, you technically have an additional year to maintain these competencies before you're not going to be able to receive the incentive payouts anymore. You can have the solutions partner designation starting at that point in time if you meet the requirements. But then after that, you have to basically say that you cannot advertise the silver or gold competency on your website or anything of that nature, but you can maintain the same benefits that you get today, including your internal use licenses, or IURs as they're known. And then the final piece is really that October 23rd timeframe and what happens then. So you can go ahead and shift into solutions partner if you meet that whenever it comes up for your renewal. But after that point in time, if you do not meet the requirements for solutions partner, you won't be able to get those incentive rebates anymore, along with the IURs as well too. So pretty heavy-handed, especially after coming off a year with new commerce experience as well.
And that's that seems like a raw deal. I mean, the channel chief that brought about the new commerce experience that they've waffled on half a dozen times, well, not half a dozen, 3 or 4 times already. He's gone, right? And I think that was kind of a strong statement to make about, the fallout of the new commerce experience. Now we have this that's, Microsoft is pretty well known for moving the goal line when it comes to your partnerships. I got my MCSE back when it stood for engineer, and then it didn't exist, and then it came back as expert, and now it doesn't exist. They keep changing this. But to be clear on this, I found these the feedback I'm getting from Microsoft partners that are gold partners, are silver partners. They find these that they're going and looking at their points, and even they're not hitting those numbers. And these are guys that are getting $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month in incentives. Is this trying to push out the average MSP? What's the goal here? I know you didn't make the program, but you follow this stuff. Can you guess at it?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Obviously Microsoft's pushing their investment money into larger companies, and on the outside, it seems as if they're trying to push the MSP out of the partner program to a large degree, just because of these changes that they're making that are completely non-MSP friendly. And Microsoft's traditionally done that with their feedback. They're listening to their largest partners to understand what they want, and not necessarily the other guys that are doing a lot of business as well too, but aren't going to hit those metrics that you can see within your partner portal today when you look at the points that you need to achieve. So, I don't know where they're heading with this, but between new commerce and the partner program changing in this regard, it would seem as if they're trying to really push out the MSPs as more of a partner in this regard, and focus on larger partners like distributors and things of that nature.
So can I ask, is this in line with the hikes that we're not talking about? So we're talking about X right now, and prior to that we're talking about NCE experience, and prior to that we're not talking about the elimination or standardization of lower tier. Hey, anybody can be a CSP, for example. You remember those? Remember yesteryear you could just go, yeah, I'll be a CSP, no problem, and then it raised to, hey, you need 24/7 support, you need a billing mechanism, etc. And those are reasonable requests. And then hold on, you need $500,000 in revenue and recurring revenue. You need the billing mechanisms, the support mechanisms, 24/7, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, then you need a minimum of $15,000 a year in payment for the advanced support, even if you have the staff in-house, which is why you're the CSP in the beginning usually. Now we're raising the bar even further, because you need all of the mechanisms, plus you need developers to hard code this NCE mechanism to support their particular structure, of which had a massive impact on the indirect CSPs. Then finally you run into this problem where not only are the the CSPs that didn't meet the requirements being phased out, but now they're pushing, and they've isolated, by the way, who can be an indirect CSP to sell to MSPs. But now they're saying MSPs just go through these, 7, 11 disties, and that's all we're pushing all of our MSPs through. That's what we just walked out of. I just want everyone to clarify that. And now we're saying, okay, well, now we're chopping off even further of whatever MSP was doing business with Microsoft. Am I getting that? Am I saying this correctly, or am I missing something? I should probably ask you that.
No, that's pretty accurate, pretty spot on. I mean, you can still be an indirect reseller, without having to achieve a solutions partner designation. So you still get your back end margin from the distributor you're working with, and you get the benefit of being able to have delegated access into these clients that you manage as well too, for doing value-added services. And Microsoft preaches that a lot, but the incentives is big. And like Ray mentioned, there's some guys that are not going to meet it that are deriving $15K a month in revenue. And that's a substantial hit when you talk about those changes as well.
Nick, I mean, there's so much here to
agree with me so fast, Nick.
I'm sorry.
Nick didn't have to agree with me so fast. I was, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I was hoping, in my mind, no, Tony, you have that a little wrong. You have a little wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, all right, Nick, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it. I mean, and we invite everybody. We're going to put his blog and his YouTube channel in the links below. Always post on our MSP as well. Follow him. I mean, I still refer people to his guide on defederation from GoDaddy. So, it's definitely a plethora of information. Nick, thank you so much for unraveling this. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Nick. That was gold. Okay, so I think we've got some notable mentions. Is Red Hat enabling channel partners? As shown in crn.com, a quote from Red Hat chairman Paul Cormier, we pared down by 2/3 the number of accounts we're going to call in directly, and even a direct account will be with our partners. But everything else will even be directly serviced by our partners. In July, Cormier also vacated the CEO role for 16-year Red Hat employee Matt Hicks to take on the role of CEO. Cormier has worked for Red Hat for more than 14 years, taking on the CEO position in 2020 when former CEO Jim Whitehurst moved up to the president of IBM. We're interested to see how this story develops, but we're really happy about Red Hat's involvement with the MSP community. In the next notable mention, the FBI says the Zeppelin ransomware may encrypt devices multiple times in each attack. In bleepingcomputer.com, they talk about the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's CISA, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, for those who don't know, warned the U.S. organizations today that attackers deploying the Zeppelin ransomware might encrypt their files multiple times. The FBI observed instances where Zeppelin actors executed their malware multiple times within the victim's network, resulting in the creation of different IDs or file extensions. For each instance of the attack, this results in the victim needing several unique decryption keys. We are terrified by ransomware and constantly keeping the community up to date with it. We'll follow the story as it proceeds.
As reported by Sergio Gatlan of Bleeping Computer, Microsoft has announced a new security product, Microsoft Defender External Attack Surface Management. That's a mouthful. This will allow security teams to detect internet-exposed resources attackers could use to breach their networks in their organization's environment. It provides customers an overview of their business attack surfaces, which in turn makes it simpler to find vulnerabilities and block potential attack vectors. The tool will continuously scan internet connections and create a catalog of an organization's entire environment, including unmanaged and agentless devices. In other words, it enables security teams to see their organization's environment the way an attacker does. Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence, the second security product Microsoft has announced, will supply security operations teams with threat intelligence needed to discover attacker infrastructure and speed up attack investigations and remediation efforts. The product will also give security operations teams access to real-time data for Microsoft's 43 trillion daily security signals to proactively hunt for threats in their environments. Also, as reported by Sergio Gatlan on bleepingcomputer.com, Google just added an extra layer of security to Workspace to protect personal and sensitive information belonging to a user's organization. The update automatically blocks hijacking attempts with identity verification prompts and logs them for further investigation. According to the company, Google will evaluate the session attempting the action. If deemed risky, the user will be challenged with a Verify It's You prompt, such as a two-step verification code. Interestingly, admins can disable this feature for users who can't get past the verification prompts. And feedback, this time from our MSP. User Maui Shaka Lord, pretty cool name, writes on our last episode, as a Twilio customer, why am I just finding out now about this here now? Well, all I can say is click like and subscribe and you'll get notified immediately.
In upcoming events, on the 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the MSP Dispatch presented by this amazing group, Ray Orsini and Tony Francisco. On the 18th, in person, Connect IT, local, presented by Kaseya. Also on the 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, August Channel Pitch presented by the Channel Program. Also on the 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Partner First webinar featuring Wes Spencer and Reed Wellock of Fifth Wall. And on the 19th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the MSP Dispatch weekly wrap up, followed by yours truly and the amazing Ray Orsini.
Speaking of upcoming events, we also have some other shows on the MSP Media Network, such as this show, 38 at 38, hosted by Mr. Aaron Bolton.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm a jobaholic. We all have something in common. We all have a worst job story. Each episode, I'll welcome one guest to share their most insane worst job story. And in return, I'll share one of mine. Join me the first Friday of every month for new episodes of 38 at 38.
So how'd you like today's show? If you like it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, go ahead and hit it twice. If you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or your favorite podcatcher. My buddy Rich Banky says, make sure to tell a friend too. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. Have any questions? Email news@mspmedia.tv or hit us in the comments or on any of our socials. We will be sure to answer on the next episode. All right, Tony, I think that takes us out for today's episode. It was definitely a fun one. Microsoft is giving us tons of excitement, and we're getting hacked from space. But thank you, dude.
Today was amazing. But if there was ever, if there was ever a reason to listen to this, it was from that one piece of feedback. Why am I just finding out about this now? Well, maybe because you weren't listening to us before. That is a great testimonial to us reporting what we think we see immediately. It affects a lot of people, if not everyone, either now or it will affect people, and we're glad to get that feedback. But today's show was awesome, Ray.
Absolutely. And as Jane Curtin said, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
See you, everyone.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
Reported by Matt Burgess on Wired.com, since 2018, Starlink has launched... Good Lord. I'm out of water. Don't judge me. Since 2018, Starlink has launched... Starlink. Jesus, I did it twice.
Is Red Hat enabling channel partners? As mentioned in CRN.com, quote from Red Hat Chairman Paul Cormier. Cormier? Is it Cormier or Cormier? Can someone help me with this? Okay. Thank you, Nick. Who's going to help me with this? Ray, come help me.
I think it's Cormier. I'm pretty sure that
Cormier?
was Cormier. Yeah.
Okay. Cormier. Okay, thank you. Cormier. Okay. Take him to the top. Is Red Hat enabling channel partners? As indicated in CRN.com, CEO Chairman Paul Cormier. Did I say it wrong again? Is it Cormier? Did I Cormier? Cormier.
You know,
And I
at this
keep
point,
wanting to say
whatever
red.
the say that works. I mean,
Exactly. Ray, you're muted, buddy. You're muted. You're muted.
Of course, I'm muted. Jeez.
Sorry, you were going so good.
That was
In the
perfect
notes,
too. I was
muted.
Oh, hold on.
Go,
Cormier. No, hold on. All right.